Data scientist Sarah Eaglesfield says she discovered unusual changes in vote counts in several states during the 2020 election. According to her research, nearly 60 counties across the United States had ballots removed from the total count after they've been counted. She said that the changes in data indicate the vote counting software, known as Dominion voting systems, is flawed.
I don't think the vote counting software is fit for purpose. I've seen counts that go down. I've seen votes going missing. And I've seen ballots that have been counted 2, 3, maybe 4 times. Therefore, I think that this software, which Texas did not approve, has got many faults that should have been investigated prior to this election going ahead.
Based on her analysis, ballots in Wayne County, Michigan were counted more than once. Numbers showed that ballots with the same voter ID appeared several times in the vote counting software. She explained she feels the discrepancies combined with evidence of dead voters make it impossible for anyone to determine what the real election results were.
Any news or any figures that have been fed back to you, they might be accurate within a few 100,000. But they're not going to be the accurate result for the state unless it's been a hand count. And I think that all the states do need to audit what they are turning over.
Sarah also said that it's integral for a fair election to report accurate figures.
If you can't have an accurate counting system, you can't have an accurate election. If you can't have an accurate election, then you're just randomly choosing who's going to be your next president.
Lawsuits filed by the Trump campaign in the battleground states are still pending. Don Tran, NTD.
No voting system is perfect. Here are the heads of the top 3 voting systems telling Congress as much.
Is there any method of voting that's 100% secure?
No. No.
No. They go on to say their voting systems are mostly safe. But here's a Senate letter from December 2019 slamming these 3 companies. Election security experts have noted for years that our nation's election systems and infrastructure are under serious threat. The Senate letter then highlights how the top 3 voting systems, ES&S, Hart Intercivic, and Dominion voting systems, quote, have long skimped on security in favor of convenience, leaving voting systems across the country prone to security problems. The lawmakers who wrote this letter? None other than Senators Elizabeth Warren, Amy Klobuchar, Ron Wyden, and Congressman Mark Pocan, all Democrats. 1 year later, now that America is asking whether Dominion tampered with our votes in Joe Biden's favor, where are these Democrats now? In the last 2 years, Dominion aggressively marketed itself to every state in the union, and while Georgia went all in and lived to regret it, one state gave it a Texas-sized thumbs down. Upon testing Dominion machines and its accompanying systems, the state of Texas concluded Dominion was too, quote, fragile and error-prone and could not be trusted for safe and secure elections. So what makes the machines fragile and error-prone? Ron Watkins, a large systems data analyst, tells One American News after over a week poring over Dominion user guides, he was stunned by how easily ballots could be accessed by one person with access to one machine.
With the Dominion system, you need to be most concerned about activist IT people. The operators system, in my opinion, have way too much power to control the internal features and settings of the system.
Just reading the Dominion manual, Watkins says he understands the system enough to devise an alarming number of ways to alter vote counts across an entire precinct using Dominion.
I was looking at this manual with the mindset of a penetration tester. An administrator would have the ability to delete ballots, reset counts, delete entire batches, etc. There's a lot of things that they can do.
Watkins notes, while there are legitimate reasons for such controls, there's no mention as to whether there's a way to track or hold users accountable for deleting or altering ballots.
Dominion will train between 2 to 6 workers per county who are appointed by the county to undergo election systems training. These 2 to 6 workers are trusted to not tamper with the final tabulation and counts while transferring data between the ICC, which is the ImageCast central tabulation software, and the county. So this transfer process is literally just dragging some folders on a Windows computer onto a flash drive, then physically handing the flash drive to the county. What I want to know is, during this handoff, are these people being watched by auditors or to make sure this flash drive isn't switched out for something else? Are these folders being dragged correctly onto the flash drive? Has the data been altered before or after it's been handed off?
This is where the security problem magnifies.
Do you trust the worker who logs into the tabulation machine to drag the correct votes onto the flash drive? Are they dragging all the votes? Theoretically, you could swap the flash drive for a different flash drive. There's no accountability there. And then once the county commissioner or whoever accepts that flash drive gets the flash drive, do you trust them to not go in and edit the contents before they report it?
As Georgia underwent its recount 2 weeks after Election Day, flash drives were found with uncounted ballots on them. Over 2,700 votes had been forgotten in the initial count. 1,500 of those votes were for Donald Trump, 1,100 for Biden.
So another issue is the keys. The keys to the machine are digital devices. It's unclear what the device is. It might be like an RFID device or USB or something, but it is clear that it's a digital device that holds some kind of cryptographic key on it. If you lose this physical key to the machine, then you lose absolute security of the entire precinct. Say Philadelphia was storing these keys in a warehouse and they were robbed and the only thing stolen were these keys and a laptop, then you should consider their entire election to be illegitimate because they have lost the physical security of the system.
That's just what happened in Philadelphia 1 month before Election Day.
Philadelphia police are investigating after somebody broke into an election machine warehouse and stole a laptop and a USB drive. The theft happened last night at the warehouse on the 3500 block of Scotts Lane in East Falls.
Officials were quick to declare this theft had nothing to do with the election and was not malicious at all. An odd declaration. You don't catch the criminal, but you decide you know their motive? Interesting judicial logic, Philadelphia. Meanwhile,
local reporter posted this video on social media where he's seen walking around that same warehouse without being noticed.
Whoever stole those keys in Philadelphia has admin access. Do you trust a random thief who has administrative access to the voting machine? They could have theoretically been able to make as many keys as they want for Philadelphia.
On election night, Donald Trump led Joe Biden by 800,000 votes, major precincts reporting. In the dead of night, that lead disappeared. Biden overtook Trump and took the whole state of Pennsylvania by 60,000 votes. That 60,000 vote bump came from the very Philadelphia county in which the drive and laptop had been stolen. Watkins' list of concerns about Dominion's vulnerabilities went on. Watkins found it strange that algorithms for ballots with just one candidate on it, called an undervote, were so complicated. And it is unclear what happens to these ballots.
The computer may or may not throw out your vote.
Another concern, right after the 2018 midterms, Pennsylvania made a custom request. They requested Dominion change the system to read a straight Republican or straight Democrat ballot, but oddly, read an individual candidate separately from the rest of the straight ticket choices below.
I looked at the font they're using, and it's part of the Arial family of fonts, ARIAL, which is a sans serif font. And with this font family, a capital I and a lowercase l are nearly indistinguishable on a piece of paper. The person who designs the ballot and the race could theoretically put Donald Trump in the Republican Party, not the Republican Party. And that would be a capital I instead of the L. And then everybody else on the Republican Party would just be in the normal Republican Party. In that situation, if you vote just straight party for the Republicans, then Trump would not get a vote. And there are I've been hearing a lot of issues of Trump performing poorly in heavily Republican areas.
Next, Watkins says the machines are not supposed to connect to the internet, but there don't seem to be physical safeguards against connecting to internet through the store-bought laptops.
If even one of these computers was connected to the internet, like if one election worker said, oh, I'm going to look at TikTok videos for the next hour for my break, then the entire precinct is compromised.
But even these concerns were minor compared to what Watkins shared with us next. Dominion's algorithm for handling an anomaly, that is, a stray mark or bleed through from a Sharpie pen.
So this is the big one that I'm most concerned about. If the scanning system detects any anomaly on your ballot, then you are not counted.
What Watkins reveals next explains one of the strangest mysteries of the 2020 election. Ron Watkins' analysis of Dominion voting systems is through a singular lens, that of an infiltration hacker. Through that lens, the machines are disastrously vulnerable. But as a systems analyst, the biggest red flag about Dominion was its algorithm where ballots with anomalies, bleed-throughs or stray marks, are set aside and not counted.
What happens when your vote is not counted due to an anomaly? Then a scan of your ballot gets saved into a folder on the ICC, the ImageCast Central Tabulation System. This allows for those 2 to 6 people who are trained by Dominion to go through the folder of anomalies and either delete or verify each of the ballots inside the folder. I believe it's called vote adjudication. These workers can theoretically see which candidates have been marked as votes on these anomalous ballots before they are verified and officially cast. So it's possible they could, in theory, handpick a certain party's vote to be verified while throwing out all the others.
But it's the next point that stuns Watkins most.
The biggest issue here is that the system for detecting anomalies can be set up by altering gamma settings on the scanner so that every ballot has an anomaly. This, in effect, by altering gamma settings on the scanner so that every ballot has an anomaly. This, in effect, allows those 2 to 6 trained people to go through and hand check every single ballot before they are verified and cast into the tabulation system as an actual vote. That last point explains to me how certain candidates can get 130,000 votes at once with 0 votes going to the other candidate. It explains to me how or why vote workers in places like Arizona might have given Sharpies to certain voters because they might have wanted that specific vote to be caught by the anomaly system and hand verified at a later time.
Watkins says this is a task for the feds.
My recommendation is for data forensics teams, federal data forensics teams, to seize or subpoena the ICC ImageCast Central Vote Tabulation machines, which are just Windows 10 off-the-shelf machines. Go through and see how many votes hit or how many votes arrived into the folder which is specifically set up for anomalies. This one bug has to affect an entire election. And it's not even a bug, this is a feature.
One that would allow enormous batches by the hundreds of thousands to be decided on by a few unmonitored workers.
Your vote doesn't matter in these districts with the Dominion machines in them because these 2 to 6 people trained by Dominion have ultimate control. It doesn't take a genius to realize that setting the gamma levels incorrectly makes all the battle become anomalies, which you can then go through later and adjudicate. If I was Trump, I would investigate those 2 to 6 people per county first.
Watkins is of the opinion any competent hacker, thief, or paid-off poll worker could game the Dominion system and alter hundreds of thousands of votes. But a bigger question lurks. To what extent was this actually designed by the top on purpose? In September 2020, FEC United founder Joe Oldman had infiltrated Antifa to uncover journalists who were active members of the Antifa group attacking his company in Colorado. Joe, you infiltrated an Antifa conference call this past September and accidentally came upon a top Dominion voting systems executive named Eric Coomer. Describe that call and what it led you to find.
It was interesting how the call started. Somebody says, "Who's Eric?" He says, "Eric's a Dominion guy." Someone actually said, "Hey, go ahead." Told him to continue speaking. And someone interrupts and says, "What are we going to do if effing Trump wins?" And Eric responds, and I'm paraphrasing this, by the way, "Don't worry about the election. Trump is not going to win. I made effing sure of that." And then they started laughing, and somebody says effing right. And so I just put a simple Google search to start, which was Eric Dominion, Denver, Colorado. And Eric Coomer came up immediately under Dominion voting systems.
Turns out Eric Coomer held a top position at Dominion. With a PhD in nuclear physics, Coomer joined Dominion as vice president of engineering and holds several patents with Dominion, ensuring users can adjudicate ballots from the machines. The very function Ron Watkins pointed out as a huge red flag. After the election, Altman was sent an article highlighting Eric Coomer from Dominion. Altman started looking into Eric again. Eric was the director of strategy and security at Dominion and a shareholder in the company.
When I got into his Facebook page, that's when things really started to kind of come together for me that, that Eric Coomer was this, that he was not just Antifa, he was responsible for putting his finger on the scales of our election.
And Dominion seemed to be a friendly place for such anti-Trump sentiment. Coomer goes on to travel to battleground states all of 2019.
Whatever they were building to coming into the 2020 election, that he made sure it happened. He made sure that that Dominion voting systems was in all the battleground states for the 2020 election.
Eric shared 3 folders of screenshots capturing the disturbing profile of Eric Coomer, starting back in the 2016 election.
So this is a rant. He says rant, Facebook friend land open call. If you're planning to vote for this autocratic, narcissistic, fascist, asshat blowhard and his Christian jihadist VP pick, unfriend me now. No, I'm not joking. I'm not for reason, political discourse, and healthy debate.
You could see how he started to just become unhinged. So he actually talks about the fact that his work has the same mentality that he has towards being anti-Trump.
Altman shares over 80 images of posts Coomer shared on his pages. The Antifa Manifesto, songs like Dead Prez, Body Count, Cop Killer, F the USA. Once Altman begins the expose, Coomer panics.
He locked down everything. He scraped the internet of everything having Eric Coomer on it. So they even went into lead candy. Dominion took him off their website, removed him from the board position on their site. They've literally made Eric Coomer a ghost.
As we were putting this investigation together, the public listings of employees for Dominion were fast dwindling from public purview. But we also came upon a friend of Coomer, a woman named Penelope Chester Starr. She works at Dominion too. As communications director, her resume reads Clinton Foundation and vice president of the Bill and Hillary Clinton cash cow, Teneo. Teneo booked Bill Clinton speaking engagements. Chester Starr also organizes anti-Trump rallies in Canada. These are just 2 Dominion employees of dozens more with clear anti-Trump allegiances. In Coomer's case, he was in a position of power to actually act upon his rage against Trump and Trump voters. What does he mean when he says, Trump won't win, I made effing sure of that? Nothing? According to DHS's former cybersecurity director, Chris Krebs, this was our most secure election in history. Nothing to see here. Incidentally, Krebs's now infamous most secure election in history memo was co-written with the endorsement of the Election Commission. Dominion is on that commission. Dare we dig deeper?
There should never be another election conducted in this country, I don't care if it's for local dog catcher, using a Dominion machine and Smartmatic software. We have got to have an American company that uses paper ballots that we can all verify so every one of us can see that our vote is our vote.
In the early 2000s, the election technology market had over 20 competitors. 20 years later, Dominion and 2 others dominate the voting technology market in America. This is a problem, especially if their Antifa-drenched engineers are hell-bent on deleting half of America's voice. If they're saying this in the open, what are they saying behind closed doors? In 2014, Dominion partnered with the Clinton Foundation. Dominion admits this, but assures all, their partnership with the Clinton Foundation has nothing to do with how Dominion tabulates votes across America. Go ahead, believe them. Big media, big tech, and big government demand that you do. Meanwhile, citizens like Joe Oltmann, analysts like Ron Watkins, news outlets like OAN, and lawyers like Sidney Powell will keep asking the questions the FBI refuses to, and the left demands you ignore.
All of you taking pictures right now, and I can anticipate what your headlines are going to be. If you are not willing to talk about the evidence that has been presented, then that is absolutely unacceptable.
Well, Jenna, as you were right, I want to show the audience some of the headlines that popped out today. You were spot on. They didn't really do this. But, you know, it was funny. Not only those were the ones that were there and covered it, but I want to show you what CNN actually had to say, because they didn't actually even cover it, even though they wrote one of those headlines. Let me play you for what one of the hosts there said.
It has been a bad week for the Trump legal team that actually right now is holding a press conference that is so bananas we can't even bring it to you because it's just so full of BS. The Trump legal team mission is a mission impossible. And that's even before you consider the collective lawyering abilities of this crack team that Trump has assembled: Rudy Giuliani, Jenna Ellis, Joseph DeGenova, Victoria Tonsing, and Sidney Powell.
Jenna, I don't mean to jam you. We don't have a ton of time left, but just tell me I mean, you predicted it. So what do you have to say about what they did based on what you told them that they would probably do?
They're censoring us, and they don't want their viewers to actually hear directly from us. They can't even pronounce Joe DeGenova's name correctly, so clearly they haven't done their fact insights or research into this, but it's pure censorship. And for every person out there, if there's a network that is refusing to bring you something on the air because they want to declare it bananas, that should tell you everything you need to know about the fact-checking and actual journalism of that network. That's disgusting.
Yeah, Newsmax carried it live. Jenna Ellis, thank you for coming on and breaking this down. We look forward to having you back and getting an update.
Sounds good. Thanks, Sean.
Political correctness operates within the same guiding principles that any hate group does. It demands that everyone look, sound, and act in a particular way. We should not be afraid to speak our minds, no matter how harsh our thoughts might be. The downfall of free speech is the downfall of a free society. In May 1991, President George H.W. Bush gave a commencement speech at the University of Michigan. In it, he identified political correctness as a threat to America.
The notion of political correctness has ignited controversy across the land. And although the movement arises from the laudable desire to sweep away the debris of racism and sexism and hatred, it replaces old prejudice with new ones. It declares certain topics off limits, certain expression off limits, even certain gestures off limits. What began as a crusade for civility has soured into a cause of conflict and even censorship. Disputants treat sheer force, getting their foes punished or expelled, for instance, as a substitute for the power of ideas. Throughout history, attempts to micromanage casual conversation have only incited distrust. They've invited people to look for an insult in every word, gesture, action. And in their own Orwellian way, crusades that demand correct behavior crush diversity in the name of diversity.